Hey guys, so today we're going to go through a mini lesson on how to elaborate. Now, before we get into the what, the why, and the how, I do want to remind you to follow the instructions at the top of the page, especially with respect to the instruction that is now underlined, which is please meet with me to share your question, even if you do not have one. As we always know, when we're completing work on a mini lesson, let us please make sure that we read the instruction, do the instruction, and strike through the instruction. So with that housekeeping out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's go ahead and start with the what. So what are we trying to accomplish through today's mini lesson? Well, our goal for this mini lesson is to construct a foundational knowledge with how to elaborate in our writing, especially when we complete work on a high-cost task. To elaborate means developing or expanding on an idea using greater detail. And why are we taking class time today? To develop this skill of elaboration. So why is this essential? Well, elaboration is an essential communication skill to develop. This is because elaboration allows you, as the writer, to better express your thinking, thus allowing you to better demonstrate your knowledge of the topic or concept. Additionally, by elaborating in our high-cost tasks, we will be well prepared, or I should say certainly better prepared, for our Harkness preparation sheets. Now let's go ahead and move into the how. So guys, when we elaborate in a high-cost task, there are always 3 steps. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through step 1, and I'm going to explain a little bit, then I'm going to go through step 2, explain a little bit, step 3, do the same thing. Once I've gone through these 3, I'm then going to show you the elaboration and the work of someone from last year's class, a current 8th grader, so that you can see a little bit about what this might look like in practice. Let's go ahead and start with step 1. So whenever you're going to elaborate, or more exactly, whenever you see the words high-cost task, the first thing you're going to want to do is identify. When you identify, there are 2 things you're doing. You want to identify the question you are trying to answer, and then begin your response by answering that question. Now, this might seem simple, but it's actually a really essential first step. You want to make certain that you know exactly what it is you're actually trying to answer. So if I go to Unit 1 and we work ahead to Human Impact on the Environment case study, which is our next high-cost task, you're going to see that here is our question. Using the example of Easter Island, please explain how human impact on the environment, specifically deforestation, may contribute to the decline or collapse of a society. Now, what I need to do from all of those words is pull out the question that I'm actually trying to answer in this high-cost task. And for me, I can see it right here. Right? I'm trying to answer how human impact on the environment, specifically deforestation, may contribute to the decline or collapse of a society. So I'm going to just copy this here, go ahead and capitalize. And now what I'm left with is the start of my response, which is human impact on the environment, specifically deforestation, may contribute to the decline or collapse of a society. And that's where you fill it in. If nothing else, this first step allows me to be ensured that I am doing exactly what is expected of me and that my answer does align to the question that's being asked. Now let me go ahead and delete this so that you guys don't have this in your document. Let's go ahead and go back to the mini lesson. So once I've identified, the next thing that I am going to seek to do is, or I should say the next step here, is evidence and examples. So this again is twofold. First, you want to collect useful, relevant, and impactful information to support your answer, and you want to use examples from the resources provided to further support your answer. So again, let me go back to Unit 1. So here, you're going to see again the question, using the example of Easter Island, please explain how human impact on the environment, specifically deforestation, may contribute to the decline or collapse of a society. Well, first what I need to do is identify the resources from where this information might come. And of course, pretty obviously, it's going to come from Easter Island Part 1 and Easter Island Part 2. Now, what's important here is what you're going to see is there's no expectation that you're going online to conduct independent research. All of the information that you're going to need can be found right here within and contained within this document. Now, as I look through and as I watch this video, I'm going to want to collect information that is going to tell me about the collapse of Easter Island, specifically in terms of human impact on the environment, and even more specifically, in terms of deforestation. So in my write-in here, I'm going to want to give clear examples and clear evidence of how human impact on the environment brought about the collapse of Easter Island, specifically with respect to deforestation. Now let me go back to the mini lesson. And finally, the third step, compare and contextualize. So once I've provided sufficient evidence and examples in order to support my answer, the next thing I need to do is compare and contextualize, which involves two things. When I compare, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare to other things we've learned in terms of decline, collapse, and the 5-point framework. In this way, I'm making sense of, for example, human impact on the environment as something more than just this one piece of the framework, right? It doesn't exist on an island or in isolation. It exists all together. As we know, the 5-point framework works collaboratively. And next, we want to contextualize this learning within the larger learning of the class. For example, how is it that learning about human impact on the environment is going to help us to answer that big question found on the whiteboard? And how might it connect to the macro concept of patterns? So with that shared, I now want to just quickly show you an example from last year. So let me go up to Social Studies B block, and here you go. So this was the work done by somebody in last year's class, and there's just like two things I want to point out here. It's obviously a lot of writing. I don't want to overwhelm you, but just take a look at this. First, this was in terms of relations with hostile neighbors, so let's just take a look at what it says. Relations with hostile neighbors relates to conflict between societies. This factor, like other factors of Jared Diamond's 5-point framework, is a complementary one and may lead to the collapse of a civilization, as the need for fundamental resources intensify and the need arise for a society to attack another to acquire these resources. An example of relations with hostile neighbors is the collapse of the Aztec Empire. What you can see this person having done is they've clearly identified what the question is that's being asked, and they've clearly put forth an answer to that question. They've then gone ahead and identified the example that they're going to use to further explain how relations with hostile neighbors can bring about collapse. They're going to use the Aztec Empire. And then for the remainder of this, what you're going to be able to see, again, that elaboration of examples and evidence. From here through to about here, you're going to see that there are a lot of useful, relevant, and impactful pieces of information, all of which relate to that larger example earlier identified of the collapse of the Aztec Empire. So again, guys, as we go back here, you're going to see that whenever it comes to a high-cost task, there are 3 steps that need to be completed. Identify, evidence and examples, compare and contextualize. From here and now, having seen this work, please go back up, please strike through the instructions, and again, please complete work on this document. Thanks, guys. See you in a bit.